This is a great question. And this comes up a lot. This comes up with even other professionals that have been doing this for years and years. Should you post your rates on your website or keep them secret? Should you share the rates before the assessment or at the assessment? So basically, should you make your rates public? And I don't have the right answer. The answer is it depends, all right? It depends on several things. You want to consider your personal preference, your marketing style, the types of services and products that you're offering. Obviously, if it's online courses rather than a session, you'd have to post the price. Also consider how well you showcase your teaching style and how well you communicate the value that you offer on your website. Okay, I'll talk a little more about that. I want to give you some pros and cons of each situation, and then you'll have to make that decision for it yourself. So the pros of posting prices on your website: it builds trust because you're being transparent. People who really and truly cannot afford your session rate won't contact you. So you won't be doing an assessment or giving up your time to do an assessment for someone who truly cannot afford to schedule. Even if they can't, I put this note here, even if someone can't afford to schedule with you, I do think it's always nice to do the assessment. I've had people that I knew couldn't afford it or weren't going to sign up, but that assessment helps people so much because you're giving them tips, you're giving them guidance, and just the self-awareness of what they're actually doing when they speak does help them improve a lot. So you don't want to waste your time, but it's also not a bad thing to help people who need the help and maybe can't afford it. So that's just a note. Another pro is that people who do want to work with you will see your prices and then they won't contact you until they've got the budget, usually, right? So they're more likely to do the assessment and schedule immediately because they're prepared for it. Some cons of posting your prices: higher prices may scare some people away before they get all the information about how you can help them. People or potential students may not realize how much value you offer, and they won't see that you're worth the price. Okay. For example, maybe in your sessions, you provide more communication. You provide like email follow-up and video follow-up between sessions. Maybe you don't charge for materials and other people do charge for materials. So it's not always an apples to apples comparison, especially if they're looking at other providers. So that's one of the cons. And they may end up choosing a cheaper service provider or a cheaper service because they don't really know what you offer. They don't know how to compare the services. So if you do decide to post your rates on your website, be really careful that you're clear about all the value that you offer. That includes the transformation that you offer, how you can improve their lives. We talk about that in the marketing module, but also be really clear about, if you offer communication between sessions, if the practice sheets are included, if you offer discounts on groups of sessions, make sure that the value is really clear, that it looks like you're giving way more value than you're actually charging. You always want to over deliver with the value, and so that it's a no-brainer decision for them. Okay, so you can think about that as you're working on your website. I think it's also important to have some really great video lessons on your website or your blog, because this way you're showcasing your teaching style. Students see your rates, but they also see how great you are as a teacher, and they understand how much you can help them. You're showcasing your teaching style so they know what they're getting and they can make a better decision. Okay. Let's move on to not posting your rates, the pros and cons. So not putting your rates on your website, not letting anyone know what you charged. And the beginning of my career, this is what we did. It wasn't my choice, but we weren't allowed to give out our rates. It was a private practice in New York City. They had to come in. We weren't allowed to, we didn't talk on the phone, but the secretary was not allowed to give out the rates over the phone. They had to come in, sit with us, do the evaluation before they could even get an idea of what we charged. And that's a strategy, because here are the pros. Interested students have to contact you to get the pricing info. That initial contact starts the conversation, and when someone is talking to a real person, there's more of a connection. You can explain exactly what you offer. They can ask questions. So There is something to be said for just getting someone to take the first step and contact you for pricing. And if you know how to handle these initial conversations, you can really get people to know you, like you, trust you, and really want to work with you. So the conversation is a nice thing. People, another pro is that people get a better idea of how you can help before price comes into play. So if someone is doing an assessment, or if you're doing an assessment, they get all the benefits before they even think about price. This makes people a little more likely to schedule because they see all the value. They're not just basing it on the pricing alone. So what I said about what I said earlier about making sure the value's there, this is the opposite of that. They know the value, and then they have the price. So you tend to get some signups, more consistent signups that way. Cons are, some people believe that if the price isn't listed, it's too expensive and they won't contact you at all. Some people just want to know the price up front. And this is me. This is why I put this in here. They want to know the price before they waste your time with the assessment. So they may never contact you at all. And as I said, this is me. If I think it's so awkward to sit with someone or have a conversation with someone and to have to say, no, I don't see the value in your services, or I can't afford it. That's awkward too. So I would never set up an appointment with someone without knowing what they charge. But that's just my personality. It really depends on you, and you need to test, maybe try it both ways and see what works best for your business. As long as I've been on my own, I've always posted my rates on my website and offered up the information before the assessment when they initially contact me. But as I said before, that's a personal preference. That's what would attract me personally to a business. I know other teachers who don't post their rates and it works well for them. So again, pros and cons, you've got to see what works best for you. Okay, good.